All right, good morning and welcome back to the Tanya, the weekly Tanya class. If those who are on Zoom can put yourself on mute, I'll put you on mute. If you have a question, you can unmute yourself. So there's no background noise. And those who are in class in person, if you don't mind, put your phone on vibration or turn it off, ideally. We'll get started. Tanya, weekly Tanya class. So I just want to give first a big welcome to those who have joined us. We have a lot of new people in class, some older. We have some advanced students in Tanya and some are first timers, right? Who are here, so first timer? Okay, good. So I want to give a little bit introduction, overview. Good morning, Sandy. We just started. This Tanya class has been going on for many, many years already. We have done the book of Tanya, started about 15 years ago. It took us 5 years to finish the book, approximately 5 years. And then we started again, I think, with the 2 cycles of Tanya. Every time with a new group of people. And as you're going to see today, Tanya is not just a book. It's not just a book you read. It's a manual that helps us with life's questions, with inner transformation. It is. I'm gonna give a proper introduction to the Tanya. However, I did put in the email the book that we use, and currently we're holding in the 3rd part of the book. So don't be afraid to jump in where we at the book. I'm going to help you. However, the first few classes, because we have been off Tanya for a few months, we had a meditation course, and I want to have more people come in. We're going to give an overview of what we have learned. It's going to be very, I want to give an overview. So those who have learned already Tanya, it's going to be a good time to review. I myself need review. I've been learning Tanya since I am probably around 9 or 10 years old. Every single day we study Tanya. So every time I read it over again and I study it over again, it has new meaning. So review is part of Jewish learning. So those who have never learned it before, my hope is that you will be able to jump in and get the ideas behind it. A lot of people are attracted to the word Kabbalah, and many people have very interesting ideas what Kabbalah is. Today, I'm not going to go into exactly what is Kabbalah, what is not Kabbalah. My goal is learning Tanya is to achieve, to help us to think differently. The way you think today should be differently the way you think yesterday, to speak differently and to act differently. This is what the purpose of Kabbalah is, to change the way we think. And most importantly, Kabbalah is spiritual teaching meant to be brought down to earth, meant to be brought into practical application. That's why Kabbalah must be practical. There cannot be shortcuts. Those who use Kabbalah as shortcuts, good luck. That's not what Kabbalah is meant to be. Which I mean by them, for examples are, just wear a red string and drink this water and scan the Zohar and you will have enlightenment in life. Doesn't work this way. I have no time for that type of stuff. That you can go to other places.
The red bundle doesn't work. The red bundle doesn't work.
The red bundle doesn't work. It's not that it doesn't work. That's not what Kabbalah is about. It's taking Kabbalah and make it as a pop culture. That's not my conversation today. My goal is to teach the inner teachings of Kabbalah, especially the way it's explained in the book of Tanya, with ideas that we can have where Torah and Kabbalah is all about inner transformation. Inner transformation takes work, which in Hebrew is called avodah. So the class is not a class where you just come and listen and have a good coffee. The class will require you to work, meaning to meditate on what we're learning, to try to understand what we're learning, to ask questions, to come back and forth, because every information you'll get will open up to new ideas and new questions. So questions are always welcome, but the questions that you're going to have today are going to be, you might get answers today, but you're going to have new questions tomorrow or next week. And this is where Tanya comes into place. The history of Tanya. Tanya is, it was written in the year 1796 by the first Rebbe of Chabad. His name was Shneir Zalman. He basically took the idea of Kabbalah, which is the teaching of mysticism, the esoteric teaching, and wrote it in a way what we call the teaching of Hasidism. The teaching of Hasidism primarily is to take the teaching of Kabbalah and bring them into practical application. How do we serve our Creator? What is the meaning of life? What is the purpose of creation? What is the soul? What is God? What is not? What is God? What is the struggle that how do we deal with struggle? How do we deal with inner anxieties? How do we deal with our emotions? How do we deal with our intellect? Et cetera, et cetera. What we're going to do is we're going to watch a 4-minute clip on the history on Tanya, and then we jump in. we're not going to use the book today that we used in class. I have a handout that I printed, but you don't need a handout. If you're on Zoom, I can put a link. No, I can't do that. Well, I'll try to screenshot it, and I have a PowerPoint. We'll use the PowerPoint today as the template for the text and for the flow of today's conversation. First, let's watch the video, and then we'll get into the Tanya. If by next week, those who are here who have not emailed me that they're joining, then I'll compile the emails and we can send out the PDFs of the text until we get into the actual book. So now let's watch the video. Can everybody hear me clearly on Zoom? All right, it's always a challenge to go between Zoom and the people in the crowd, but we'll do our best. Yes, Luba, you have a question.
Yes, I'm just asking about handout, if we can print it out later or get it in the shul later on.
Yeah, I will, God willing, email it to everybody in the class, or there will be prints out in the shul.
All right, okay. Thank you very much. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
No problem. Let's go to the...
The followers of Chabad Lubavitch refer to the book of Tanya as the Bible of Hasidism. It has spawned several thousand editions, was published in myriad locations across the globe, and it is studied daily by thousands of Jews, in private, in classes, online.
This is what the page should look like.
And through apps. Its author, Rabbi Shneir Zalman of Liadi, was an 18th century scholar and mystic of rare abilities. While our nation produced many great sages over the millennia, Rabbi Shneir Zalman stands among the select few that tower over our people's history and power our progress to an inspired destiny. In 1775, he founded the Chabad Lubavitch Hasidic movement, and in 1796, he agreed to have his magnum opus, the Tanya, published for public benefit. For 20 years, Rabbi Schneur Zalman painstakingly weighed each letter and word of his manuscript, and Uri has spent the subsequent 200 years unpacking the gifts of guidance he invested within those sacred phrases. In the Tanya, one discovers a highly methodical presentation of the foundational principles of Hasidism: how to serve God sincerely, joyfully, how to remain humble, motivated, how to deal with inner struggles, the purpose of life, of challenge, of existence, of the individual. Insights flow with clarity, forming a cohesive river of wisdom that revolutionized Jewish thought. Surprisingly, the Tanya is not written in the style of a philosophical or theological thesis. Rather, it is framed as a response. Here is the work's purpose as expressed by its author in his foreword to the Tanya. I address those with whom I had frequent warm conversations and who revealed to me all the secrets of their hearts and minds in all that regard to their heartfelt service of God. This work is comprised of responses to many questions frequently posed by Hasidim in our land, for they seek advice and moral guidance in the service of God, each according to their spiritual station. Time no longer permits me to reply to everyone individually and in detail. Besides, people forget the responses I give them in the course of conversation. I have therefore recorded all the replies to all the questions to be preserved for perpetuity and to be readily available to all. There is no longer any need for people to press to be admitted to talk with me in private, for in this work, everyone can find counsel to soothe their soul and proper guidance on any matter that one finds difficult in the service of God. Rabbi Schneur Zalman was overwhelmed. He had perfect answers to difficulties that had plagued sincere worshippers since the dawn of time. Who would not wish to meet him and receive life-changing guidance? But a day has only so many hours, while he had tens of thousands of followers who streamed to his door from across Eastern Europe. He therefore set his quill to paper in an effort to do what none had dared to do before: to collect answers to a lifetime of spiritual questions from people of all walks of life. This book would contain, in his words, all the responses to all the questions, and it would be formatted so that it was readily available to all, for all Jews, for all times. The Tanya contains solutions for each individual's struggles in their spiritual and emotional lives, for the Jews of his own times, and for our struggles today.
Sivit Hashem, let's hear you. So Shema Yisrael.
It's always exciting. All right, so let's get into it. In this beautiful video, it talks the history of the book of Tanya. I just want to add one more thing that he said there. That Tanya is not a information book. You know, Tanya is a book that he wrote based on his conversations he had with people. So I'm gonna pull up the PowerPoint. I'm going to share the PowerPoint. Start over here. Just make sure the people on Zoom can see it. Go. Okay. So in today's class, in today's lesson, I'd like to give an overview on the first few chapters of Tanya. We just discussed the world of Tanya. We're going to discuss the Two Soul Doctrine of Tanya, the structure of the soul, and navigating the gray area. So we saw in the video, Tanya was published in Belarus, in White Russia, in 1796. He called it Likuti Amarim, which is a collection of discussions he had with people. Shnei Zaman of the Adi. And as we said, Tanya is not a book on faith. We have many books on faith. Primarily, Maimonides wrote a famous book on faith called Mesilas Yesharim. But Tanya is more of a book of practical tools. So you have faith, you have Jewish philosophy. Tanya is pretty much a self-help book, but not just a book where you read and you get ideas, but it's a book that gives you the tools that comes from a mystical master. So when you talk about, we're going to open up with a question. If you have it in your textbooks, we have a learning exercise. Do you have a copy? Okay. On page 4 in your book, but you know, I'm going to pull up the slide on that. Let me skip this slide quick. Before you get to the question, sorry. Anything you want to master in life, the key is to have a good coach or a good teacher, or a good mentor, correct? Anything you want to master. So if you want to understand the soul and you want to have help with what's the purpose of life, for that we got to go to a master. A master of what? A master of souls. Who is a master of souls? So you can say a Kabbalist, right? Who is a Kabbalist? Someone who studies Kabbalah. Yes, that's true. However, in Jewish understanding, a master of soul is somebody who also is soulful, lives a life of soul. And that's what we call a tzaddik, a very special soul. A tzaddik is a person that God has gifted to the world, that has a very holy, lofty soul, who not only understands his own soul, understands other people's souls, and can give guidance. In Hebrew and Yiddish, we call it a Rebbe. So clearly, the word Rebbe means in Hebrew teacher, like rabbi, but Rebbe is 3 letters in Hebrew, Rabbi, which stands for the 3 words, Rosh Bnei Yisrael, the head of the Jewish people. It's just like the head is the control center who understands everything originates from the head, right? If I want to move my arms, I got to send signals from the head. There are people that God has given us in this world through our history, like Moshe Rabbeinu and great Rabbi Akiva, Hillel, and Baal Shem Tov, and other leaders, and the Rebbe of our generation, who have understood the makeup of the soul and can give guidance to people. So typically people will come to a Rebbe and ask questions about their life, about their struggles, about directions that they need, because they understood what is their mission, what is their soul purpose. So Tanya writes in his introduction, the Alter Rebbe, he was such a mystical person. Hundreds and thousands of people used to come to him throughout Europe, and at one point it got too much. Plus he understood that his life is limited. So he started to write the book of Tanya as a question and answer series. So he says basically the book is not just a book, the book is like having a private audience with the master, with the Rebbe. You would come in and asking him a question, he will give you information, and then you come back and you work on that, and you come back. That's what is and look over here on the screen. The Tanya is not just a book, but a substitute for personal mentorship. So the Tanya in general goes through understanding. Starts with first we have to understand oneself. Then we have to understand how do we navigate the struggles, balancing emotions, dealing with unhappiness, the global effect, and total mastery, mind, emotions. That is in a nutshell what Tanya is teaching us, going from 1 to 6 in 53 different chapters. Let's start with the first one, understanding oneself, and this is probably going to be what today's class. All right, following? So let's do the learning exercise. I know a lot of people don't have the text, so we're going to skip most of the text. We're just going to go to PowerPoint, and I don't see you on Zoom because I'm using the PowerPoint, but if you are on Zoom, you have questions, feel free to just unmute. All right, this is easy exercise. Think of a failed resolution. Think of one failed resolution. You did a resolution, right? It's New Year, you have a resolution, you're going to do something. And then think about, and it failed, it didn't work out. Can you think of something? Most people can, right? If it's that exercise or the diet, whatever, right? Okay, and it failed. So now think about why you did not follow through. What is it that you didn't follow through? Why is it? So let's take the classic example. You decided to go on a healthy exercise, on a healthy diet, right? Okay, here we go. All right, and now it didn't work out. So the question is, which is the real you? You wanted to be healthy. You said, I'm going to eat fruits and vegetables. And a week later, right, you're back on eating cake. So which one is the real you? Is it the one that wants to eat healthy, or that one that keeps eating junk? Which one is it?
The cake.
The cake people. You're the cake. Huh?
Yep.
The cake. You say
I think it's
the
both.
default position, basically. And you try to change yourself, and it didn't work. Sometimes it works. Sometimes the resolution works. But something doesn't work. And then if it doesn't work, you ask yourself, so who am I? Am I really a health conscious person or not? And then you say, no, I'm a junkie. And what happens next, right? What happens next? Okay, I'm a junkie, so I'll eat more junk and more junk and more junk. And that leads to another thing, another thing. So how do we deal with that? Simple as that. So for that, comes the Tanya introduced us to a revolutionary idea, and that's called the idea of the soul. Now, we all know the word soul is very, what does the soul mean? What is the soul? Can you touch it? Can you see it? Can't see it, can't touch it, right? Who has a soul? Who doesn't have a soul? Humans have a soul, animals have a soul. For the argument, for now, for information is taught in Kabbalah and Torah, everything has a soul. Everything has a soul. When I say everything, not only humans, not only animals, not only trees, plants have souls. Not only that, rocks have souls. Anything that exists, anything that's in existence has a soul. What is the definition of a soul? By definition, the soul means life force, the force that gives its existence. But we're not going to discuss all different types of soul. Today, we're going to focus on the human soul. All right, so we all have a human soul, which is life that gives the animation that gives us life. But Tanya says, and that's the revolutionary idea of Tanya, and it proves it from the prophets, from Torah text and scripture, that not only do we have a soul, not only do we have one soul, we actually have two souls. And understanding that why we have two souls is actually critical to understand how we operate, how we function. Without it, we are confused. Without, we don't know what's under the hood, so to speak, right? Jackie Mason says, a Jewish guy driving his car and the car breaks down. What does he tell to his wife? There's something under the hood, right? The Jews don't know what's going on in a car. They're not mechanics. Something going on under the hood, right? So we know that something is wrong, so you gotta understand. You gotta go to a mechanic, right? Mechanic understands how to take it apart and what's missing, how to fix it. In order to understand our struggles, in order to understand, for example, in our learning exercise, what's going on, I need to understand who am I? What's going on in my subconscious? This is the Two Soul Doctrine, which begins with, and he brings a proof from the scripture, where it says in Hebrew, Uneshamot ani asisi. And in Hebrew, neshama is a soul. Neshamot is souls, meaning plural. God says, and neshamot I have made, meaning more than one soul. And he's talking about the individual. So based on this verse, we have the Two Soul Doctrine. We're going to introduce the first soul, And don't get distracted or don't get confused. The first soul is called in Hebrew, in Kabbalistic terms, namely in the Zohar, Nefesh Habahamis,
Nefesh.
the animal soul. That's the first soul. So I'm going to explain what that is. And the second soul is called Nefesh or Elokis, the godly soul. We have an animal soul and we have a godly soul. So what is the animal soul and what is the godly soul? So let's talk first about the animal soul. The animal soul is, why is it called animal soul? Why does a human have an animal soul? Animal means it's animalistic. What does animalistic mean?
The cake eater.
And the cake eater. An animal is driven by self-preservation. It's self-oriented. It is the force within us that tries to preserve ourselves. It's not evil. We don't have an evil soul, God forbid. It's not even called what we call in other terms Yetzer Hara, which is the evil heart. Rather, it is the soul, the gifts that animates our life, that's self-preservation, self-preserving. It's actually, as we see in the text, in the Tanya, if you look in chapter 1 and chapter 2, if you get the book, I want you to review those chapters. It says that God put this soul, the nefesh, I don't know if it's in the PowerPoint, but if you have your text, and I quote, it says in text 2, Ki nefesh habasa bedam hi. That soul, he closed in the blood of a human being to give life to the body. As is written, for the soul of the flesh is in the blood. From this soul stems all evil and natural good traits. For this soul of non-holiness is derived from a neutral level of non-holiness, which also contains good. I'll explain this to the people. So basically, this is where is this? It's in the blood. The blood, in the blood, there's a soul, this energy that gives us life. So basically, the animal soul, the animalistic soul, or in Hebrew, nefesh habahamis, is everything that gives us physical life, like our bodies, the way we have a drive for self-preservation. It's self-oriented. The animal soul is not evil. It is instinctive. It's self-oriented. It's animalistic, and in the Kabbalistic terms, it's neutral. What's neutral? Meaning the animal soul, the drive that we have, can choose to do good things or can choose to do not good things. It is the potential that makes a person choose to do something that is proper, that is good, that is holy, that is ethical, but it also has the ability to go into places that are improper or unholy. So where is when we say a person that, for example, we're going to give examples, right? When you go and eat, so the action of eating, what's the life energy? Who's eating right now? Is it the animal soul or is it the godly soul? It's the animal soul. It's the animal soul that's eating. So where's the godly soul? We'll soon talk about the godly soul. Now, your eating can be an activity of, it's neutral, right? Eating is neutral. It can either be with a proper mindset. You're eating to have good health. You're eating and you're grateful that the food comes from God. You're grateful the people gave you the food. You say a blessing. You eat kosher. You take the energy of eating with the mindset. It's a mindful eating that you want to serve God. You want to make this world a better place, tikkun olam. Now you have elevated the animal soul to do good. But if you're eating something that's inappropriate, as an example, or you're it's self-oriented, now it becomes unholy. Let's talk about the godly soul. We're going to get this
When
more.
you eat for just for gratification,
Yeah.
because you happen to be hungry,
Mhm.
or you have a desire for sweets,
Mhm.
that's self-gratification. So it's not holy, correct?
It's not holy. It's not,
Okay.
but not holy is not evil. Most things we do by default are unholy. That unholy is unholy, and then there's evil. We're going to see some different categories in Kabbalistic terms. Where am I in my day-to-day activity? Okay, so don't get afraid, because God does not expect us to be a tzaddik. A tzaddik is a person, as he says in chapter 1, that actually eradicated his animal soul. He only has a godly soul, meaning he or she is completely no longer self-absorbed, has no ego at all, which is impossible to achieve. It is rather a very unique thing that God gifts to unique individuals. And God doesn't expect us to be a tzaddik, because God gave us two souls. And if you have two souls, meaning, in a sense, that means there is imperfection. There's imperfection in you. But the call for perfection, is we're going to learn in Tanya, is to control the animal soul. All these teachings will allow us to understand who we are, why the struggles, how do we deal with struggles, and that can be incorporated in every aspect of life. That's the beauty of Tanya. You can incorporate everywhere in life. You can incorporate it in your diet, you can incorporate it in your service to God, in your service to other people, relationships, etc., etc. We're just getting started. Clear? Anyone on Zoom okay? Because I don't see you guys on Zoom. That's really...
What determines the can-do good of neutrality is Kabbalah, right?
Correct. Yep, we'll get there. Let's talk about the godly soul. So we call the godly soul neshama, but what does the word neshama mean? Soul. Why is it called neshama? The Hebrew word neshama means to breathe. To breathe. What's the connection of neshama and breathing? In addition, we learned in the meditation course, we had a beautiful meditation on that. The reason why we know that when God created Adam, in Torah, it mentions that God took earth. That's why it's called Adam, because Adam in Hebrew comes from the word of Adamah, which means earth. Also, Adamah has also the Hebrew word adimyon, which is a reflection. God took earth, created a body, and then step two, that was step one. Step two, and he blew, that's what it says in Genesis, and he blew a living soul into his nostrils. In Hebrew, neshama shenasati, right? Neshama, God blew a living soul. That's why the godly soul is referred to typically as neshama. But as you see, we said earlier that even the animal soul is called neshama, but don't get confused on that. But typically, when I say neshama, we're talking about the godly soul. What's the Hebrew word for the animal soul? Nefesh habahamis. Because in souls, there are different names for souls. Neshama, nefesh, ruach, chaya. As we go through Tanya, we'll learn these vocabulary, right? But now I'm going through basically giving you today's class will be really an introduction to some of the beginning of Tanya, some of the vocabulary, and some of the definitions. So bear with me. Let's talk about the godly soul. The godly soul so just like God gave us a body, the animal soul, God also gave us a godly soul. Who has a godly soul? Every human being. Every human being. That's the definition when we say that we're created in God's image. B'tselem Elokim. What is a godly soul? The godly soul, we said, was created with breath. God blew into the nostril. It's not physical breath. But when God speaks God writes the Torah in the language that we can understand. So sometimes it gives definitions. So we know when God created the universe, God created the universe with speech. What was the first thing God did? Let there be light. God spoke. Utterance. God spoke. Let there be light. Six-day creation, God always said, let there be the heavens. Let there be the moon. Let there be the sun. Everything was uttered and it was created. Not so when it came to creation of man, creation of the soul. Here, God doesn't use the word speaking, but the word is blowing. What's the difference between speaking and blowing? So speaking is very external. I can talk for a long time, but blowing comes from, in Yiddish we say from the kishkis, right? It comes from the insides. And I can't blow very long. I'll get very exhausted because it comes from the innermost part of myself. God says the living soul, the neshama, is not just a soul that gives life, like everything else that has life, but actually I have given a part of myself into every human being. As quoted in chapter 2 of Tanya, "V'nefesh elokis yichelek elokah mima'al mamash." The living soul, the godly soul, is an actual part of himself that he gave into every person. Which means that we all have a soul that is part of one God. That means that we are all, by definition, are all interconnected as one unity. All right, what's the nature of the soul? Okay, so just like we said, the animal soul is the life force that animates my body. The second soul, was created with speech, was part of God. However, the animal soul is by definition selfish because it cares about itself. Is it godly? It's not godly. It's my body. It's selfish. Selfish, but again, it's not evil. My baby is very selfish, wants to eat at 2 a.m, right? Except 2 a.m, wants to eat, right? Why does it want to eat? Because it's hungry. It's self-preservation. It's not evil. So it's selfish. The godly soul is the opposite, is selfless. It's a part of divinity that's within us. Yeah.
Is it part of disbursement of God's self into every person, part of pre-code or no?
We'll get there. No. All right, so in the textbook, there's a little question here. We'll do it to get on the chart. Animal soul, different definitions. It's selfish. Godly soul is altruistic. Animal soul is embodied in the blood. Where is the godly soul? It was breathed into us, which means we learned that in the meditation course that just like God exists everywhere in the universe, there's no place in the universe that God doesn't exist, by definition. The neshama, the godly soul, exists everywhere we are. As we're going to learn in Tanya, which brings the concept of what the soul is. The soul is an actual part of God that was given to us at birth, but it really existed before we were born. The neshama is eternal, existed before we were born, is given to us to give us direction, to give us purpose, to give us meaning as we learn. How do we connect to our soul? How do we connect to neshama? And the key part here is, well, now we understand why the soul doesn't die. It's not just, his legacy continues to live on. A living soul, a neshama, never dies. It cannot die. God doesn't die, and the soul doesn't die. And the soul continues to live on after our lifetime. And we go into the topic where in the chapters 30 and 30 on, we learned that already. Again, you can review it and learn it. The concept of the afterlife, the ideas of Gilgul Neshamot, reincarnation, and to the idea of resurrection.
Just a question.
Yeah.
Animal soul dies.
Yeah, exactly. The animal soul dies.
Okay.
The godly soul doesn't die. Very good question. Thank you. All right. So these are, again, today's class is giving you a lot of what this is all about, but we're not going to go really into practical yet. We're going to give a lot of tools, a lot of the, we're filling our toolbox with the definitions. As we go through Tanya, you'll learn how to apply it in real life scenarios. The animal soul seeks pleasure. The godly soul seeks godliness. The animal soul is the primary soul because by default it's in the driving seat. You wake up in the morning, your animal soul is all eager to go out and conquer the world and see how much it can be. It's all about self, right? I need to now shift or try to focus on my godly soul, and we have tools for that. Saying a prayer, doing a mitzvah, and incorporate that the godly soul is actually controlling or kind of gets the animal soul to follow along because it's a team effort. Remember, the godly soul cannot express itself without the animal soul. Because the function of me speaking, the power of me speaking is from the animal soul. My godly soul wants to express something, it needs the animal soul as its vehicle to express. I'm going to get there soon. The animal soul relates to the neutral, godly soul relates to the transcendence. All right. Any questions on this? Anyone on Zoom? You can unmute. I can't see you. But
I have a question.
yeah.
Are they interconnected, animal soul and godly soul? They are aware of each other and how they communicate together?
How do they communicate with each other?
Yeah.
Very well. They have to learn. They have to learn. It's a marriage. That's why we learned it in the when a person passes away, it's very painful for the soul, for the godly soul. Its partner passed away. The main aspect of a funeral and the traditions we do a funeral and Shiva and Kaddish is to help to console the neshama, the godly soul, for the loss of its partner, the animal soul. That's why there's no cremation, for example, because cremation is actually very painful for the animal soul. The animal soul needs to go back to its origin. That's the idea of cremation is anti-Jewish, and it's so painful for the neshama that's still, in a sense, always connected to a gravesite. But we're going to go into another conversation on that. But these opens up. You see what happens? Yeah. We're opening up different conversations, different content. How do you communicate with our loved ones who are no longer here? Can we communicate with them? Yes. Anyone on Zoom has no questions? Everyone on Zoom is clear? I switched back. Yes? Clear? Thumbs up?
Absolutely,
Good?
absolutely.
Right.
Don't worry. Thank you.
Yeah.
Quick question.
Yeah.
Difference
But it has to be on topic, otherwise, so we're going to talk after that. Yes.
Any difference at all here with all that we're covering between Jew and Gentile?
It's a good question. Yes and no. Yes and no. There is the idea. She asked if there's a difference between a Jewish soul and a non-Jewish soul. There is the concept of what we call we are the chosen people. God chose the Jewish people at Sinai. Chosen does not mean we're better. We all created in God's image. Chosen with a responsibility to be a light unto the nation. That comes with a big expectation.
Is that in the soul?
That was given when the soul came into our body at birth. It was given with these expectations of the mission that we need to fulfill. So there's a mission for a Jew, there's a mission for a Gentile. Each of us, every human has its mission of Tikkun Olam. We'll get there. Which understands really what Tikkun Olam is. Yeah, but we cannot do something that is not our mission. I'm then denying why I'm here on this earth. That's where the guidelines and the manual for our soul is in our Torah. That's why Torah is so critical. Okay, I'm going to go back on the PowerPoint. All right, human anatomy. All right. All right, so just like a doctor needs to understand, right? You tell the doctor something hurts, the real doctor, a good doctor, right, will know how to go under the hood and find what's the problem, because he understands the anatomy. So just like there is the human anatomy, there's also the spiritual anatomy of man. So we're going to introduce the tree of life a bit. I want you to not get too, we're not going to go in detail. We're going to give very, just a little overview. We're not going to go into the details of what they mean. In Tanya, we have covered some of that, and we'll refer you to the chapters where it's at. So, but it's important that just like in medical student must memorize hundreds of body parts and functions, we also need to understand the spiritual anatomy of man, if you want to understand our soul. So, God created the world with 10 supernal faculties called sephirot. These are 10 different faculties of energies that God created. These are the building blocks of creation. It's the tree of life, known as the tree of life. And parallel, just the way God created the universe, is also how he created us, humans. So if you learn about the 10 supernal sephirot, we have a better understanding of our makeup, our soul makeup. Both souls are made in that function, in that structure. And even more advanced, more an advantage is for me to understand the universe. I can just see myself in the mirror, so to speak. I can see, who am I? How am I comprised? And with that, I can understand how God functions in the universe. And the prophet says, "Mipsari echse elaka," which means basar, means my body, my flesh. Mipsari, from my flesh, echse, I can see or I can understand Eloka, godliness. When I learn about myself, learn how I was created, I can understand how God created the universe and how God keeps creating the universe. What are the 10 faculties? All right. You may have seen these pictures before. It's in Hebrew, but I'm going to just tell you that these 10, if you look in the body, you have right, left, center, again, right, left, center, right, left. You have the arm, you have the head, you have the digestive system, you have the reproductive system, and then you have the legs. We're not going into those details, but in general, those 10 are divided in 2 categories. The upper 3, which is the intellectual, the cognitive part, the brain, and the lower 7, Boris, remember we did tefillin? 3 and 7, which is the emotions. These are the 10 functions of the soul. So the soul thinks, and the soul has intellectual capacity, right? The soul not only thinks, the soul is the source of our force, of our ability to think. In the cognitive world, there are 3 levels to develop an idea, primarily in Hebrew called Chachma, Bina, Das, which the acronym of Chachma, Bina, Das, by the way, is the word Chabad. If you want to know what the Tanya what the Chabad movement is to not just to learn Torah, but to understand Torah, the philosophy of Torah, to understand it intellectually, so you can bring it down into emotions. Those are the 10 faculties of the soul. However, that is the powers how we think and the power how we feel. In order for us thinking to actually come into reality, in order for our emotions to express itself, we need to have vehicles of expressions. In Hebrew called levushim. Levush means in Hebrew a garment. So the soul has 3 garments of expression. 3 ways it expresses itself. This is a lot easier to understand. What are the 3 garments of the soul? Number 1, thought, speech, and action. So, example. In other words, the garments are the expression of my soul. Thought and think and intellect are 2 separate things. I have an idea. I came up with an idea, came up with a piece of intellect. But to actually think about it, to actually have a real thought, is how I express this power of the idea. It's a very subtle difference of internal and external. Internal is the faculty, the power to think, and the actual thinking is the garment of that soul power.
You're saying internal, not eternal.
Internal versus external. So let's go with speech and action. It's a lot easier, right? So I have a thought or I have an emotion. I have an emotion that I love somebody. I have an emotion that I want to express an emotion of kindness to somebody. It's internal. It's my soul. But I need to express it. How do I express it? I think about it. I speak about it. I do something about it. The 3 garments of the soul. That's very critical to understand, because we're going to learn it is the difference between, because a lot of times, and we'll go back to the resolution challenge, right? Resolution challenge of the cake and the apple. Too many times we focus on changing the internal parts, and the internal parts are almost impossible to change. Our job is to focus on the garments, on the external, how we express them. In other words, it's not that we have to change our souls. You cannot change your soul, but you have the power to control how you express it. So just like you're angry, for example, right? You know that the mouth is the piece that will express that anger. So it's hard to say, don't be angry, but I'm angry. I'm not a tzaddik. I have an animal soul. My animal soul is angry now. I didn't get the cake. Right? I'm angry. Well, and if you expected me to change, that's impossible. I give up. Rather, you can control your mouth. Control your action. That's why Judaism is all about action. Judaism is an action, right? It's all about actions. Don't care so much what you feel. Don't care so much even what you believe. It's more important what you do. It all intertwines to what this is all about. All right. Where do we find the kind of thought, words, and action that allow the godly soul to express itself? So we talked about anger, which is the godly soul, right? But just like the animal soul, just like the animal soul has 10 operation systems, they're like, the godly soul also has 10 operation systems. The godly soul thinks, the godly soul feels. The animal soul thinks, the animal soul feels. So anger is a feeling coming from animal soul, right?
Mhm.
Kindness, love, respect. Where does it come from? The godly soul, animal soul? Well, it depends. Depends what kind of kindness it is, right? Depends what kind of love it is. The love to a place that's not supposed to be, that's not a good love, right? A love that is self-oriented. The relationship, is the love self-oriented? Is it love because you love her, because you have an agenda, or you actually truly love her? So those are the very fine, where the pendulum goes between animal and godly. Who is in the driver's seat? So let's talk about the godly soul. How does the godly soul express itself when it comes for what does the godly soul want? Does the godly soul want to eat apple or cake? What does it want to eat?
Neither.
Huh? Very good,
Neither.
very good. You're a good student. Neither. The God's soul doesn't care about apples and cake, right? What's the God's soul want to do? Because apple and cake both are still self-preservation. So nothing. So where does the godly soul come in? What does the godly soul want to do? You wake up in the morning. You can talk to your godly soul. Right? Like you have a conversation. What does your godly soul want to do?
Wants to study Torah.
Okay, wants to study Torah.
And this book of Tanya,
Wants to
so
study.
that it knows what to do.
Okay, good example. So it wants to study Torah. It wants to do a mitzvah. It wants to help somebody else, right? It wants to change the world. It wants to make the world a better place. It wants to give a child an education. It wants to build a bridge so the neighbors can get. All the things that are not self, that are selfless, is what the God. So, for example, God the soul wants to study Torah. How does that's the Torah has wisdom. Torah has emotions. Torah has action. So the wanting, the eternal sense of I want to think, I want to do, all that is the soul power of the godly soul. What are the garments of the soul? Thought, speech, and action, right? If I study Torah, I think Torah, I speak Torah, or I do Torah. It's like these examples here. I do an action, I light the candles. When I light the candles, my garment of action, my hand, is expressing my godly soul.
Is it believed that the godly soul accumulates?
Accumulates what?
I'm not sure what to call it. Points, I don't know. Energy.
It's like nutrition, right? Nutrition. It's not about you have to eat every day, right? To have nutrition, you need nutrition to operate. It's not like you can do today, eat for 10 days and then starve for 10 days. Similar to so the animal soul needs nutrition. Similar, the godly soul needs its nutrition. It's a different nutrition plan. It's spiritual nutrition, and it's starving, and we're not giving it enough attention. And it's not one or the other. It's bringing those two and work them in tandem. Work them that they become a combined unit.
Does it have a bigger function later?
The idea of when we talk about self
Discipline.
not just self-discipline, but the idea is that every day it's a work to become more refined. It's a refinement process. It's not all or nothing. It's not about getting somewhere. My job every day is to do my maximum in my refinement process. That helps. Meditation helps. Mitzvahs help. Torah helps. Prayer comes into play. Prayer is not for my. It's not for my. For myself. What time is it? All right, we're gonna have to move on.
So let's consider it on Rosh Hashanah. I mean, Yom Kippur.
Shani Yom Kippur is the Super Bowl of your soul. It's a very important day, but that's where your soul gets is activated in a very powerful way, and we gain access to take that power through the year. So it's not a one-day event; rather, it's part of the entire system. All right, we don't teach this enough. These ideas are not taught enough. If we just can teach this more, especially to our youth, they'll have a better understanding what life is all about. That's why it's so critical that we teach that. We just teach kids in Hebrew school, bar mitzvah, practice the Torah, half Torah, and what happens? They have a nice party. They enjoy the party, but didn't enjoy that the rabbi trained them to practice and memorize something they had no idea what it means. And then they turn around and say never again. Okay, all right. So let's move on here. Quickly, the structure of the soul faculties is eternal. Okay, faculties eternal. The character, self, inside, what you want. Garments is external behavior, self-expression, outside, and not what you want, but what you do. This is really the difference of what you want and what you do. So your animal soul always wants something. The question is, and this is really the key, the garments, when I speak, it's either the animal soul or the godly soul in the driver's seat. It cannot be both together. So what I want to do, I'm angry, right? I want to scream, But what I do, if I can control my mouth, my godly soul keeps my animal soul in check. All right. We discussed it. It's clear on garment of the soul what it is. Right. Just like when you have a skill to play tennis, right? Or you're a painter. It's not the hand that has the skill. There's something deeper inside of you. You have a skill. The hand is the expression. The hand is the garment that expresses that. The eternal faculties. We talked about the two parallel souls. The godly soul has the 10 faculties. The godly soul has the 10 faculties. And we are going to move on to, I want to change here. Take the challenge. Okay. Would you be able to give up your, oh, this is a good challenge. Let me give you a question. Would you be able to give up your favorite foods? If I would tell you, if you give up your favorite food for 1 year, I will give you $1 million. Can you do it?
Yes.
Huh? Yes. However, if I tell you, can you learn to hate your favorite food for the year, and I'll give you $1 million. And after the year, I'm giving you a lie detector and tell me that you actually hate the food, or you're going to pay me $1 million. Would you take the challenge?
No.
Huh?
No.
So what's the difference?
One is emotion. Is emotion involved? One is just self-control.
Exactly. One is the soul, the animal soul, right? The internal faculties that I can't change. It's impossible to change. It's not impossible. It is, somebody who's a chain smoker, for example, loves smoking, habits, right? Sometimes they stop smoking, now they hate smoking, right? So sometimes habits can actually change not only the garment, but also the internal powers. But in general, by and large, you cannot change your internal, you can only change and control the garments. I can keep my mouth shut for a year, even if I still love the cake. That's the difference between the soul and the garment of the soul. And this is really key here.
I think this
Yeah.
might be the biggest difference between, believe it or not, the ideologies of Judaism and Christianity. I think the difference is right there.
Okay, let's elaborate on this in the end. We covered a lot. I'm gonna stop here. I'm going to, if those who are on Zoom, if you can please, if you don't mind, just email me again that you want to take this class. I will email you this PDF was prepared by the JLI of a synopsis of Tanya. I believe it's going to take us a few Mondays in the next few weeks, and we're going to go over some of the first 30 chapters of Tanya. After we covered the first 30 to 40 chapters of Tanya as a synopsis, not inside. My goal is to continue starting from chapter 41, 42 of the book, which is a new topic, which is the topic that has to do with mitzvahs, meditation, love, and fear. And it will it will come to the idea of soul, afterlife, the Messianic era. It's a little more advanced into the book, but I want those who just joined us not to feel that they can't jump. You can really jump in. It's great. You can buy the book that we posted on the website on Amazon. I have a few books in that I ordered. You can buy it in the office and read through the chapters. But remember, the book is not a book you just pick. It's not a book written in 2022. It's written 200 plus years, almost 300 years ago, in Hebrew. And the book that we chose has a good translation, a good commentary, explains things pretty well. So I encourage you to read through it. And there's classes online, and you can go back to our YouTube channel. Most of the classes we did, we recorded. But the Monday morning class, I hope in the next few weeks, with the PowerPoint and the PDFs, will get us a good overview. If you want to get an actual hard copy, you can feel free to stop by Chabad, and we'll be happy to print out on the printer. With that, let me take some questions. And if anybody has any questions, I'll stop sharing the screen here. Anybody? Questions? No questions? I'm going to ask you questions. Okay.
I have a question.
Okay, yes.
When it says, just a second, I know that you.
Also, in the PDF I'm going to send out, it has a good introduction to Tanya, just a few pages. It goes through the entire book of Tanya in a synopsis as well. The more you read about it, the easier it's going to be for you to jump in
You already
into this
talked
teaching
about
of Kabbalah. Huh? Yes. Huh?
it. You already talked about it, but it says every Jew possesses two souls.
Yeah.
So every human, right? Not just.
Yeah. So remember that the book of Tanya was written for Jews.
Mhm.
The rabbi wrote it for Jews. So when he talks about he wrote it about the Jew. But by extension, every human has a godly soul. Every human.
Everyone else.
Everyone else. The question is, of course, we discussed in Tanya, what happens to evil people, right? Nazis, that they have a gospel. That's a whole discussion, right? There is real evil people in the world. Yes, there is. But by definition, every human has a godly part inside. They have the ability to deny it. The evil person who denies the godly soul, which, for example, when it comes to the civil law and Jewish civil law, which I'm starting a new course in 2 weeks. We're starting a 6-week course on Tuesday on Talmudic civil law. What's the Jewish law and civil law, how they come together. When it comes to capital punishment, for example, I was watching an Israeli documentary how the Mossad assassinates terrorists without due process, why didn't bring them to court, and they know who did what, and they go and do their job. But the line in Torah is, if somebody comes and kills you, hashkim lahagacha, you have an obligation to kill them first, because the moment they're ready to murder somebody, they have denied their godly soul, and they're going to take away your soul. You have an obligation to kill them. So that's where capital punishment comes in. But I'm getting off track. Anyways, other questions? Yeah.
Yes.
My point really, and the strong idea is here behind everything. You have the opportunity to learn the makeup of the universe, of what's the purpose, what's the reason of why we're here on this earth. It makes life living much more meaningful and purposeful, and our Creator has given us the tools to live life to its fullest, and we don't need to go and search for most of the New Age ideas are all rooted in Torah, in ancient wisdom. It just that it hasn't been taught enough. And when you have that better understanding, you'll have a much richer experience doing things, whatever it is, wherever in life. It's in work, if it's relationship, if it's your relationship to Hashem, relationship to other people, etc.
Can this start to be taught in Hebrew schools?
So Chabad Hebrew School teaches a lot of those teachings to the kids. That's one of the things we incorporate a lot in our teaching, not just to teach them the what, but the why and the deeper meaning.
I'm
Yes.
just mainstream it into conservative.
Go ahead,
Right.
be my leader. Yeah, my blessing. But it's people are confused because there's a certain yearn for that teaching.
Mhm.
So people do different things that works for them. They do yoga, they do meditation, they do Kabbalah. And it's been, that's why you go to a New Age group, right? A lot of Jews there, right? Why so many Jews attracted to a New Age group? Actually, spiritually, Jews, because we have that very special soul, we yearn for this type of teaching. But we have done a real bad job as Jews presenting it in good language, in education, with giving proper education tools. All right, I hope everyone had a good time.
What do you think the reason for that is?
What's the reason for it? it goes a lot with the Jewish history has been, by the way, in Torah observant communities, this has not been a problem so much. So it goes at the idea of turning Judaism into a cultural operation, right? Moving away from religious practice. But the reason why people move away from religious practice is because they look at it as archaic, they look at something old-fashioned, it's not relevant. And that's the key component that was taken out. If we have that part, you have Tanya, you have Kabbalah, you have Torah, then your life, even wherever you are in your life, you didn't grow up this way, then you can enrich your life by religious experience. Then a Seder becomes meaningful. Rosh Hashanah becomes meaningful. Shabbos becomes meaningful.
Maybe assimilation got that going, got that started.
Huh?
Maybe assimilation got that
It's part,
started.
yep. That's it. That's what we're here to fight back.
Yeah.
All right. Good seeing everyone, and we'll make it a great week.
Mazel tov to Washington.